Good evening, Cambrianites. If a man says he's not afraid of dying, he's either lying or is a Gurkha, said Field Marshal Sam Manekshaw. These lines cannot fit more aptly for anyone else but our guest on the show today. An out and out Cambrianite, he studied right from class first to the senior school and was in the boarding. He joined NDA in the year 1971 and ruled various accolens in the Infantry Core with his 40 years of distinguished services to the nation. Our guest on the show tonight also served abroad as India's military attaché in Myanmar. He retired in the year 2014 as military secretary, one of the most coveted and prestigious positions at the army headquarters. He has been awarded 4 presidential awards, which are PVSM, UVSM, AVSM, and the VSM. He is now settled at Purkul, Dehradun in the foothills of Mussoorie. He is the chairman of National Gorkhaland Committee, where he continues to be a fighter and brings his revolutionary ideas into action every day. Our guest is currently in the Cambrian Hall Board of Governors. Resonating an absolute sense of unity in one's thoughts and action, he has led a prolific life and has donned many avatars in his lifespan. Dear Cambrianites, please join me in welcoming a firebrand fellow Cambrianite, Gen Shakti Gurung, retired, on our show today. Sir, thank you very much for accepting my invitations. And how are you doing, sir?
Thank you, Sachin. A pleasure talking to you and being on your show. And it's also an honor to link up with my fellow Cameroonites and my colleagues through your show. A pleasure and an honor. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Sir, we'll try and, because you come from the golden era, we'll try and take you back to the era where you had started your schooling at Cambrian Hall. Now, I'm talking about the 1960s era. So if you could just tell us a bit more about that golden era, a bit about the campus, how it was, and those days, how was Cambrian Hall around that time?
See, can I go a little back into history? I won't really call it history, but
Yes, please.
as to how the school started, and all
Yes,
that,
please, sir. Yes, please.
No, it was in the late 40s, somewhere around 1948, 49, that the royal family of the Ranas, headed by Jodha Shamsher Jang Bahadur Rana and his Maharani, that they shifted to India and were given residence on Lytton Road, which is just behind St. Joseph's Academy. And they stayed there till such time that the present campus came up on Young Road. And this happened sometime in the early 50s, when they were given this piece. I mean, they weren't really given this piece, but they had bought this piece from a Maharani from Ambala, which I'll come to a little later. And it was only in the early 50s that they shifted to the present campus. And after the Maharani died, that is Jodha Shamsher's wife, that Colonel Shashi Shamsher and his wife, Rani Lakshmi Chandra, decided to open a school, which resulted in its present name of Cambrian Hall. That's how Cambrian Hall came about. And so it was in 1954 that Cambrian Hall started functioning as a proper school at Lytton Road, that is in the old location, which is presently the headquarters of the Uttarakhand police. And it was there that the school started. And at that point of time, Colonel Shashi had just finished his schooling from St. Joseph's Academy. And he picked Mrs. Banwering, who was a teacher there in SJA, and her husband, Major Banwering, who was a PTI there, to start the school. And that's how the school started in 1954. And you also covered on your show Captain Chadda, who was one of the initial students in the school. Then what really happened was sometime in 1956, because the area got a little congested and then Dehradun started expanding. So they were offered they were offered the area in the cantonment limits where the school is presently located, and they shifted base to that area. after purchasing that complete area, which is presently the school, from a Maharani called who was from Ambala. She was from a small kingdom there called Manali, Manauli. That's how it was spelled. I think her name was Sardarni Gurdial Kaur or something. And they purchased this area from her for 1.5 lakhs and came to live out here. And subsequently, when they shifted school from Lytton Road to Young Road, that's how they started the school the at its present location.
Yeah.
Now, the present location was also the residence of Lieutenant Frederick Young, during the old British days, that is in the 19th century. It was Lieutenant Frederick Young who was the guy who started recruiting the Gorkhas, after the Anglo-Gorkha War of 1814 and 1815, where the Gorkhas, for the first time ever, defeated the British forces. And it was really an eye-opener for India, because that was the first time that the Indians realized that the British could be defeated. Actually, it was the British East India Company that was functioning in India those days. So the first battle, the battle between the Gurkhas and the British was fought very much in Dehradun at a place called Khalanga. And that's how the Anglo-Gurkha war started off. And it finally ended in the hills of Sabatu, in the hills of Shimla. Now, I joined school in 1960. Like you already mentioned, I've spent a bulk of, in fact, my entire school life in Cambrian Hall. And when I joined school, I was just about 5 years old. I could barely tie my laces, leave alone do anything else. So I was totally dependent on the local maids, the local ayahs. They had a number of them to look after us, because we were a whole lot of small kids that time in school. And I've sent you a photograph of my first day in school also,
Yeah.
With me and my elder brother Deepak, who was then in class 2, and our class teachers. Behind me, I think, is Miss Gyani. She was my first class teacher. And behind Deepak is his class teacher, that is Miss Chalpala, who passed away, I think, about 2 years back in Dehradun.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we have Mrs. Manwaring standing right behind me. She was the founder principal, and our parents onto the sides. Now, when I joined school, whatever little I remember is that we had the palace as it was, the golden yellow building where we had the boarding. The boarding was the dormitories were on the ground floor and on the first floor. At that time, the strength of the boarders was nothing very great. I remember just about 100 odd. Those days we used to get small tags. Depending based on your admission
Okay.
number.
Okay.
And I remember we had to put these small cloth tags on all our clothes. We had to stitch them up
Yeah.
on just inside the collar. And I remember my number was CH58.
Wow.
And Deepak's number was CH57. So that's how the dhobi would identify our clothes. Whenever it went to the washerman for washing. So I remember that was the main building. That is where we had our dormitories, and then we had the Dutre block, which in our time was known as the Red Building.
Mm-hmm.
The Red Building was known as the Red Building primarily because it was red in color, made of bricks.
Okay.
And that, I'm told, was the place where the royal family had kept their entire domestic staff. That's what I was told by the present lot who were there. And from there, the domestic staff would come and do whatever they had to do in the palace and then go back. Besides this, in front of the palace, we had the staff room, which was the prayer room of Judai Shamsher. And that apart, then we had the old Grant's bungalow, which is right now which then became the principal's residence. Presently, the president of the board's residence.
Yes.
And but that was about all that existed that time. There was no Joda block. There was no Manwaring block.
Okay.
There were no basketball courts. There was that same standard field where we all played on. And outside the field, we used to have the public gardens. You may have seen during your time in school. You may have seen that area as fields. Fields made by the local army formations. But during our time, it was a beautiful garden that went into the jungle outside the fence, outside the school fence.
Okay.
And it was one of the public gardens.
Okay.
Now, after having bought this this area from Sardarni Gurdial Kaur for 1.5 lakhs, like I said, one doesn't know as to when it got converted into defense land, because if they have paid for it, I don't see any reason as to why it should have been converted into defense land. But perhaps this was done because it fell within the cantonment limits and
Yes.
some new cantonment law must have come out or whatever.
Yeah.
That's why it was. That's how it was converted into defense land. And today, as of today, the school stands on defense land. It's in our army parlance we call it B3. The various categories:
Mm-hmm.
A1, D1, B, and B3. So this is a B3 defense land that belongs to the army, and that's how the school was then. That's how the school commenced.
This sounds really, really, really interesting. In fact, we didn't know what actually was there before the school was there, but hearing this tale is really interesting and fascinating, where the entire journey actually started. So, I would also like to know from you. I know a bit of my research says that I'm also from Edward's house. You also happen to come from Edward's house. So I
Yeah.
want to know a bit about the activities, the co-curricular or the sports or the athletic stuff that used to happen, and what kind of stuff used to happen in terms of co-curricular, both inter-house competition and other stuff. Tell us a bit about that during those days, sir.
See, when I joined school, those days, the school was divided. That is, all the students were divided into four houses. Now they didn't know, they perhaps didn't know how to name the houses, so they called them north, south, east, and west.
Oh
Based on
wow,
the four.
this is very interesting. Northeast, south, west. Okay,
Yeah, north, south, east, west.
okay,
That's how it was.
okay.
And it was, you see, Mrs. Manwaring, the founder principal,
Yes.
carried on being the principal till 1965.
Yeah.
And it was in 1965 that she migrated to Australia with her family. And thereafter, she handed over the reins to Mr. Dutre,
Mm.
who was a brother
Mhm.
from Lamartine College. He was exiting Lamartine College, Lucknow,
Okay.
and he was brought in as the next principal.
Okay.
And when he came in, then he gave it a little fresh look to the houses, that is. And that's the time that they decided to rename the houses as Joda, Shashi. Now Edwards, that is north became Joda, south became Shashi. Now east ke liye jo hai na, they were looking for a name. West became Mrs. Manwaring,
Okay.
that is Manwaring House,
Yeah.
and east ke liye they were looking for a name, and that was the time when we lost a teacher who used to be our PTI by the name of Mr. Edwards. He was the elder brother of Miss Edwards, elder or younger, I'm not pretty sure.
Okay.
So they didn't know what to do, so they named that fourth house, that is East House, as Edwards House.
Oh
But you'll be
wow.
happy to know that. But you'll be happy to know that recently the board took a decision,
Yes.
and what really happened was, as we go along, I'll tell you what really happened was, after Mr. Dutre passed away in '71,
Mm.
then Colonel Shashi, did not feel very comfortable because he was still around. He did not feel very comfortable having a house named after him
Mm.
when Mr. Dutre had passed away and Mrs. Manwaring already had a house named after her.
Mm.
So he decided to give his house, that is Shashi House,
Okay.
and he decided to rename it as Dutre House. So
Okay.
Shashi House then became Dutre House.
Okay.
Okay, now after all that happened, now after Colonel Shashi passed away,
Yes.
recently the board took a decision to say that, look, listen, yeah, now that he's also no more, we need to now take a relook, a fresh look at the names of the houses.
Yeah.
But then we all felt that you cannot really remove anyone's name from the
Correct.
four houses. We said,
Yeah.
okay, why not then introduce a fifth house?
Yeah.
So that's how the fifth house is now come in,
Yeah.
and we have named the fifth house as Shashi House. So once again, Shashi is back.
Yeah.
So you have Joda, Dutre, Edwards, Manwaring, and Shashi.
Mm.
That's how it is. So now you have five houses in school.
Yes. Yes.
Now just to give you a little this update on how our dormitories and all were sort of planned. We had three dorms. We
Mhm.
had the A dorm for the seniors.
Mhm.
The A dorm was looked after by Mrs. Matthews,
Mhm.
who was our matron.
Mhm.
Then we had the B dorm. As slowly as the number of boarders increased,
Yeah.
after a while, after about 2 3 years after I joined school, the strength of the boarders went up to well over 200.
Wow.
That's the kind of strength that we had.
Mm.
So they felt the need to have three dormitories. So they had the senior dorm for the seniors, that is the senior school guys. They had the B dorm under Miss Joyce for the middle school guys, and then they had the C dorm. The C dorm was on the ground floor for the children, that is for the guys who were in the junior school, and the C dorm was looked after by Miss Catley. And all three matrons were, I believe, pulled out from Sherwood College, Nainital,
Oh,
because I think they had either retired from there or they were desirous of leaving that place or whatever,
okay.
whatever the connections were with the Cameron Hall. They were all pulled out from there and brought into school, and that's how we had A dorm, B dorm, and C dorm organized.
Oh,
That's how it was.
wow.
Now
Hmm.
coming to the second part of the question regarding the activities. Now
Activity.
I remember in fact we used to have inter-house competitions and everything.
Okay.
We used to have all games. We used to have our annual sports day every year. That is, you see what happened was after Mr. Dutre came in. Now Mr. Dutre was always a sportsman himself.
Hmm. Hmm.
In while in Lamartine, in fact, he did his schooling from Lamartine, Lucknow,
Hmm.
and even then even after that became the principal. Uh, so while in school in Lamartine, he was a big boxer. He was a very famous boxer, very renowned chap, and so he felt the need. I mean, he felt the need of having giving adequate stress to sports also in school, and that's how he brought in this aspect of sports in Cameron Hall. And to help push that dream of his, he inducted Mr. Mohinder Singh. Mr. Mohinder Singh
PT.
was a Havaldar, retiring from our PT Corps, from
Okay.
our PT Physical Training Corps, and
Okay.
he was just retiring from IMA, that is
Hmm.
the Indian Military Academy. And so through some pull and push, Mr. Dutre managed to get Mr. Mohinder Singh from IMA, and he became the PTO of Cameron Hall. And
Okay.
thereafter, we saw a quantum jump in the sports standards
Okay.
as well as the discipline standards of Cameron
Okay.
Hall.
Okay.
And Cameron Hall then you know from went from its lowest point to its highest to the greatest heights in
Wow.
sports. Let me tell you that. So we used to have our games competitions in every. We used to have it in cricket. We used to have it in hockey. We used to have it in boxing. We used to have it in football. Then of course we used to have athletics. So it was all there, and terrific competition amongst the houses. Terrific competition, and
Okay.
in the end, every year the house that won used to get the cock house. So that's how it used to happen.
Yeah.
And no, that's it. Yeah, it was lovely to have all this competition.
Okay.
It kept us live and
Yes.
on the move, that kind of thing.
Very interesting, sir. Very interesting. Because I think this is one thing. There are few traditions that have been started from the early days, but are still going on. So whenever now, even when you see march past pictures or just a video of the current school, you still get the same kind of a feeling. When you see your house color or your house doing the march past. So that's why I thought I should also ask where actually this entire journey of houses started from. So I think this is very
Mm.
fascinating. I'm sure people will be very interested to know, because at least of all the friends that I know, nobody would know that the houses were earlier called northeast, southwest. So that's a very interesting trivia, sir. Okay, so I also happen to know that while I was doing my research, that your entire family has a great connection with Cambrian Hall. In fact, all your siblings are Cambrianite, plus Ma'am Madhu Gurung, who is your wife. She's also a Cambrianite. So that's a wonderful coincidence, sir. And tell us a bit about that. The entire family connection with Cambrian Hall.
You see, like I told you, when I joined school in 1960, my elder brother was also there with me. So he was in while I was in class one, he was in class two. So his name is Deepak, like I mentioned already. So it is me and Deepak who joined in 1960.
Hmm.
Then in 1964, our younger brother Kirti came along, and in 1968, our fourth brother Jyoti came along, and we were known as the Gurung brothers in school, and all of
Okay.
us were good boxers. All of us were good sportsmen. We used to play all the games that Kimnall had, and we were also quite good in studies. I won't say very good, but we were quite good.
Okay.
And my wife, she's from the 75 batch. She's a Fauji's daughter. So she actually came into school in class six, I think,
Okay.
where and that's the time that I was in senior Cambridge. I was in class 11,
Okay.
and that's because her dad got posted to Dehradun,
Okay.
so she had to obviously. In fact, her dad at that time was, I think, fighting the 71 war, the 1971 war.
Okay.
So her family, her mother, and she and her two sisters was staying in the separated family accommodation in Dehradun, and that's when she joined Cambrian Hall. And she finished her schooling thereafter in Cambrian Hall only, and she passed out in the class of 75. So that's how it is. That's how all four of us landed up in school together. And just to let you know, we also had, I remember we also had two pure Americans. Now, why I'm saying pure is they were pure Goras. Okay, they were pure Goras. Uh, Eric Chappell and Godfrey Chappell, who had come from America. That was the time, we had a whole lot of Gujaratis settled in Uganda and all those African countries, Uganda and Kenya and Tanganyika. That time, those days, Tanzania was known as Tanganyika.
Okay.
And so these guys used to come from there to study, and there were 12 of them, 12 first cousins, known as the Solanki brothers. So that's how it was. And just to let you know, we also had, I remember we also had two pure Americans. Now, why I'm saying pure is they were pure Goras. Okay, they were pure Goras. Uh, Eric Chappell and Godfrey Chappell, who had come from America all the way, and they weren't very comfortable with putting on school uniforms, and they weren't very comfortable with taking a haircut either. So, but they didn't stick around. They didn't stick around too long. They stayed just for about 3-4 months in school and then pushed off. We also had a pure Thai guy called Montri Tongbung Rong, a damn good dancer. A pure Thai guy from Bangkok, or I think it was some other place in Thailand. And but he also didn't stick around much. But them apart, we had a number of so to say NRIs from Thailand. We had we had Inder Soni of the 71 batch. Then we had, I think, Radhesham Soni of the 73 batch. Then I think there were two Soni sisters who were, I don't know whether they were related to them or not. And then Damodar Das himself was from Afghanistan.
Okay.
And his younger brother, his rather not the real brother, but his cousin Rajkumar Rajkumar Kandari was also from Afghanistan. So that was the kind of, and Nepal, of course, we had a whole lot of students from Nepal, and Sadashiv Shah and Krishna Rana, and I don't know Pradeep Rana in any case was there the, in the 68 batch, and that's why. So it was an absolute mix, and students from all over the world were coming into Cambrian Hall, and it was really good. It was a damn good crowd.
So we happened to speak to few of your friends. Vandana ma'am, for example, is one, and she was telling me about all the times that you guys spent together, while studying or after the school and stuff. And when we were speaking to some of your friends, which led to us a surprise. So we have a surprise for you, sir.
Sachin, I'm glad you're coming into another episode of Being Cambrianite. And as I learned, we are going to talk about having known Shakti Gurung, Captain General Shakti Gurung. Of course, I know him as Shakti. I was in Cambrian Hall from 1967 till 1966 till 1970, where I completed my ISC. And I had a very, very good time there. And we had some very close friends. Shakti, as I remember, was a boarder, and Shakti, they are four brothers. Deepak Gurung, who is the class elder to me. Shakti was my classmate. And then I think was Kirti, who was a couple of years junior, and then Jyoti, or vice versa. And they were a little 3-4 years junior to us. I remember Shakti as being a very, very cool, composed man. Nothing could, sort of bother him. I don't think he ever lost his cool. What I remember is that he was very cool about his studies also. Was never one of those, yes ma'am, I know the answer types. I won't even call him a backbencher. Very intelligent though, very intelligent. And but he was not very keen on, being a topper types. He enjoyed his life. A very good sportsman, if I remember, and especially in hockey. Good footballer, of course. I love Purkul, but he was exceptional in hockey. I think he was in the NBA hockey team also. He was in the school hockey team definitely. In IMA also, he played in the academy hockey team. and was always a very nice person. I remember I had also joined the hostel for 2 months. My parents had gone away from Dehradun on vacation. So they had to put us, because the school was on and my dad had to go for a very important marriage. So they put us in the hostel, me and my brother. Incidentally, he's also a Cambrianite. So they put us in the hostel, and I remember Shakti, he's the guy who actually guided me in the hostel, because I'd never been in a hostel. And I remember as a kid, I was a mama's boy type. So Shakti sort of mentored me, although he was a kid himself, but sort of mentored me, and I knew he was very well up with the house matron. She was very fond of him. And if I remember correctly, his dad was in the British Gurkhas. And I think he was in Hong Kong or Malaysia that time. I'm not exactly sure. But we used to be very happy, when we used to learn that his parents have come, and probably Shakti will get some good candies and sweets for us, that stuff. And he was a very, very lovable person. Very loved by his classmates, very loved by everybody, including the teachers. I remember Mrs. Saxena, biology teacher, very fond of him. And so was one Mr. Verma, physics, though I don't think Shakti really liked physics. And then I've got further memories of Shakti. We in school, like basically I was a day scholar thereafter, and boarders gel better together. And day scholars, we don't really mix up that much except in class. So boarders have time after the school also, to know each other better. I remember Shakti being a very, very good friend. He joined NDA 6 months before me. He was 46th NDA. Incidentally, my brother was 45th NDA. And I joined 47th NDA. One course. So we were all one course behind each other. Incidentally, Ravikant Sharma is also 45th NDA. He's also a Cambrianite and also my classmate. So when I was in NDA the first time, one is always scared, and especially on Sundays, the seniors are looking around for, the freshers. They want to kick us around. So I used to take shelter sometimes with my brother in Juliet's Garden. But I remember going to Shakti's cabin also quite a few times, even in Foxtrot, if I'm not wrong, and spend my Sunday there. And even he had work, he would go out also, but leave me in the cabin locked, so that I saved myself from getting bullshitted around. And so I remember a couple of such things, and he's always been very nice and somehow shaped my life later on in life also. That's a personal story. And now I've learned, that we're going to have this. I do tell Shakti that Indrajit Chahal remembers him a lot. He remembers him as a very, very dear friend. And definitely, if I ever happen to go down to Dehradun, catch up with him. And of course, December, I've made up my mind that I will attend the meeting. Thanks.
Sir, reactions. What do you feel hearing your good friend?
Yeah, thank you, Indrajit, and great. I'll just give you a call immediately after this. Indrajit and me have been buddies since our school days, and then in the academy, that is the NDA. And after that also, both of us being in the army, we kept in regular touch with each other. Both of us were in the infantry. While I was in the Grenadiers, Indrajit was in Sikhalai. Sikhalai means Sikh Light Infantry. He was in that, and he served his time. And after that, he's I think settled in Mumbai right now. And a very good friend. He and his elder was Harry Chahal, Harinder Singh Chahal. We used to call him Harry. Harry was from the 69 batch. And Harry joined NDA one term ahead of me. And both these guys were damn good boxers. And they were in the school boxing team. In fact, in that boxing group photograph that I sent you, you'll find both of them there. And good guys, yeah. They were very good chaps. Their dad was in the army. And I remember he was posted somewhere in, I think, 39 GTC. GTC being Gorkha Training Center in the area of Beerpur. And that's how Indrajit landed up in the boarding with us. And we've stayed in regular touch, good friends. And a number of us from the 70 batch, as we go along, we'll keep talking about it, were in NDA together. And it was one big party, in NDA. Like whenever we got the time to get together. And that's how it was. Thank you so much for getting Indrajit on the show, and I'll speak to him immediately after this. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, that's wonderful to hear that. So, any other friends that you would like to give shout out while we are talking about friends on the topic of friends? any friends that you remember? Because I understand that you had a good, close circle of quite a bit of friends, and you're still in touch with all of them. So any shout out to any one of them that you remember at this point of time, as we are talking about your friends that you made in Cambrian Hall?
And so that is how it was. Well, coming to my friends, I have a number of them. Some from my class, some from my NDA days. That is the guys who are Cambrianites. From my class, the people whom I'm in touch with are Vandana Jayavant. I'm in touch with her. We are very good friends in school. I'm in touch with Damodar Das. We are very good friends in school. I'm in touch with Indabeed Chahal. Like you, just let me hear his comments. Then, apart from the three of them, I am also in touch with. I was in touch with Kishalia Mazumdar. Kishalia Mazumdar was a real quiet kind of a guy. He was also from the 1970 batch. He settled somewhere in Bangalore. I was in touch with him for some time because we were in NDA together. Then I'm in touch with Rajinder Gerola. Now Rajinder Gerola is from the 71 batch, but we were together in NDA. So that's how it was. And I also remember Ravi Kant Sharma. Ravi Kant Sharma was from my batch, and he joined NDA a term ahead of me. So he was from the 45th NDA course, while I was in the 46th. And he went into the Air Force, did extremely well for himself in the Air Force, retired as the Vice Chief of the Air Staff, which is a very, very big thing in the Air Force, and it's a very big feather in the cap of Cambrian to have a Vice Chief of the Air Staff from our school, and a great guy once again, good friend. They used to stay in the cantonment only. I remember his dad was also in the army, and there were four brothers. All four came into the services, and his youngest brother is, I think, still in Dehradun. Rather, he's in Dehradun now. He's residing there. The other two, I think, have passed away. So it's Ravi, who's now staying in, I think, Gurgaon. He was initially staying in Hindon. I think he shifted base to Gurgaon. And his youngest brother, Sunil Khan, who's right now in Dehradun. And he's always been a very good friend. Yeah. In fact, we've been exchanging notes. To tell you one more thing, when I was in Myanmar as the military attaché, Ravi that time was the air attaché in Bangkok, in Thailand.
Okay. Wow.
So we were neighbors. So we used to keep exchanging notes over the phone also as to what is happening in his country, what is happening in my country, how should we go about military diplomacy, things like that.
Yeah.
That's how it was, and it was great interacting with him. And I wish him all the very best. And say a big hello to him. Say a big hello to him also from my side.
So we have another surprise for you. This we've never done in the past, but we are bringing another guest to the show, and this is all about the friendship that you made at Cambrian Hall. There is sunshine above the dark clouds. Rise above them, and you will see the silver lining always. And who would know better than our second Cambrianite guest on the show today?